All right, y'all, welcome back. So praise the Most High God. And shout out to this resource, but I've come to realize that I am just like this well running over of a lot of untapped knowledge that I even forgot I was once exposed to. It's amazing how what our minds can truly hold and how our brains work, which is why the neurological sciences and cognitive science is so intriguing to me, and brain surgery. But anywho, I just finished a meeting with the clinic that I'm a part of, and we're working on our garden space. Super excited for that. And we're talking about, different foliage and different things that we can put along, like the fencing and honeysuckle, which I think some species are native for sure to North America, and kind of grow wild, along with tiger lily. That may have been naturalized, but I know here in Ohio I've seen it often on like the highways and stuff like that. Both of these plants, and you'll find with many florals, actually are medicinal and indicated in many cases, especially for women's health. In the pharmacopoeia, materia medica, just sort of traditional medicine lexicon. And so we'll be looking into different monographs, such as this one, the medicinal actions and uses of these particular plants, which sort of order they belong to in the plant kingdom and the family, as well as the different species. There are over 300 with regard to honeysuckle. And there is, I believe, a species out of Mexico that is called honeysuckle, even though it's not technically the same plant, or any variant of that. And we'll kind of get into that too, especially when it comes to like essential oils, as in the case with juniperus and cedar. Juniperus is oftentimes substituted but sold as a cedar oil, whereas Cedrus atlanticus, which is safe around infants and young children and really great for supporting the immune system, and the nervous system. A lot of people, if they don't know any better, won't necessarily pay attention to the Latin name, which is why that Latin binomial is important, regardless of how I feel about it. And we'll see that here often abbreviated, that this is the Linnaeus naming system, with that first term being capitalized and usually the last lowercase, but to denote the genus and species. But yeah, a lot of people kind of don't know that juniper, oil is oftentimes sold as a cedar, but real cedar oil is completely different and, has a bit of a different therapeutic range for sure, and active constituents or properties. But there are a lot of cases of that within the world of herbalism, where common names are applied to plants that do not share in the same genus or species per se. So yeah, I'm really interested to dive into this stuff. I know, again, like I'm all over the place. I'm working on that first course that'll be coming. It'll be numerous parts to that because it's just so much information. And like I've expressed in previous videos, I've been exposed to and studying this stuff for well over 13 years. I would say about 8 of those years actively working with clients, be it in my own practice and those even in different parts of the United States, virtually, or in conjunction with other licensed or sort of like UCAMP, these unlicensed complementary and alternative, professionals in like a clinic setting. So within all that time, I would say that's about 8 years. I usually try to take a year or two off just because I want to be modest in the time. Because again, when I consider and examine the knowledge that I can actively recall and have like a working use of, I still consider myself a novice in this space. And honestly, some of the people who are proficient that I've been exposed to tend to have experience well over 20 years, or close to it. And that's not to say that there aren't those who have a lot of knowledge and success and, understanding with this type of work earlier than that, for sure. But I do believe it is something that, being a sort of, art and skill with a level of, just essence and energy. I don't even really know how to describe it. You're always a student. You're always learning. This network of knowledge when it comes to this stuff is so vast, and much of it is something that really requires a calling on your life. I believe that, to really be able to access and understand in a way that can truly be efficacious or impactful to people dealing with chronic illness. There are many people who seek to learn and understand and study this stuff, and very few people who can successfully apply it, which I think is such a beautiful thing. It's a virtuous work, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and it requires and demands a lot of you as a practitioner, and it ebbs and flows with the changes of your life and the seasons of your life. And so we'll kind of get into that more. I think I do want to also do another course series that goes into how to be a practitioner in this space and the things that I've learned through my little bit of time. And especially one that is more intuitive, somewhat esoteric, just more tuned in with, a higher entity. For me, that being the Most High God, creator of all things. Um, and so, yeah, it gets deep, and there's so much to understand about this stuff. And this is just a small percentage of what we know about the plants that are out there. I mean, the Most High God is so amazing in his creation. It blows my mind all the time. Anyway, tiger lily also, this is one of my favorite plants, being really great as well, and known to be supportive for women's reproduction, the endocrine system, and that sort of folkloric historical usage. And so I do want to delve into a lot of plants that don't necessarily originate from or are not necessarily employed in our ethnobotanical systems, or Western herbalism, but that I've still found to be of some benefit. So I think I may branch off of the Rooted series, branch off of the Biblical History of Medicine series, and do a specific series for our particular plants that were heavily utilized, based off of the records that we are able to see, again, with those WPA narratives, and some of the other resources that we'll delve into, and kind of go from there. But yeah, monographs, y'all, really great stuff. I personally have not experienced this plant myself, nor have recommended it, just because I don't have much experience with it, but I am interested in experiencing it for myself, prior to making some recommendations. And again, we see they go back to, these earlier works, and even Culpeper. And this knowledge was not exclusive to these people. And so I want to continue to stress that. I am going to continue to stress that. Again, this page is dedicated for my people, foundational Black Americans, those categorized as Black within the racial caste system here, that can trace their lineage back to the system of enslavement that still impacts every area of this land, of this nation, of this society, and all other aspects of people activity, and that still greatly impact our people. I want to ensure that I am uplifting, centering, giving honor where it is due, and placing us, situating us in the discussion, in the conversation about and around ethnobotany and herbalism, because it's rarely, if ever, mentioned. And again, when it is, it's often flattened along with the identity of a very misunderstood, how can I say this? Generalized African origin story, and very little, because of erasure, with regard to the melanated natives here. So it's important that we are more holistic. I'm not taking away, again, from the African contribution for those that the percentage that was brought over to North America, and again would soon mix in and amalgamate with the people here and the colonizers, to create, through an ethnogenesis, foundational Black Americans. Not taking away from that, but that is not all that we are, or who we are historically, nor today. And being that we have such a rich, robust culture bred out of something so horrific, unlike anything this world has really ever seen. Yeah, that needs to be centered more, and respected and revered and honored more. Absolutely. Especially when it comes to the healing works. Absolutely. And so it's my life's mission to do just that. But I just wanted to quickly put a PSA out there that I'm going to be, as I have been, jumping all over the place a little bit. For those who are following me, hang on. And for those who are like, what is going on? I recommend you starting with the Rooted series from the beginning to the end. If you are someone who is more faith-based and aligned with scripture, start with the Biblical History of Medicine series. You don't necessarily have to watch both. And they certainly aren't for everyone. Again, my audience is very niche specific. And even in the work that I do clinically, that is geared toward foundational Black American and Black, those categorized as Black women. And I don't discriminate. I'm willing to also work with and have women of color who may align with different ethnic groups, and those who may also fall under the racial category of white as well. But so basically I'm saying I would not turn you away from care. If I felt like we weren't a good fit, I would certainly refer you to someone else. But my focus, is on that particular demographic. But yeah, so we're gonna be jumping into this, and I am really excited. Super duper excited. Good stuff. But yeah, we were just talking about, what will go good on the fence, the foliage, again, being honeysuckle, some vines, and then planning out the different garden beds, the companion plants, succession planting, making sure we got good amended soil, drainage, all the things. and what plants I really want to start having us grow to create simples, so that when you all work with me in regards to your particular formulation, or if you go in person, or if you're located in the Detroit area and you happen to visit Create You, you're able to kind of get that hands-on, in-person experience and this real connection to nature and the plants that will be employed in the work that you do with me and in your formulation. It's so cool, to see that sort of, for lack of better words, farm to table sort of experience, and how the plants grow in their natural environment and what they look like, what they smell like, what those sort of like olfactory experiences are in its natural state, and then seeing sort of that transformation and understanding how, it can be turned into and utilized as medicine in a way. Not, much of how we define that traditionally, or I don't even want to say traditionally, in modern terms today, under the guides of biomedicine, but yeah, in regards to CAM, certainly. So, all right, y'all, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, share, and y'all be blessed.